the living geeks.
This is Chie Satanaka, and you're listening to the Giant Sword Podcast. You better eat more meat.
Hello and welcome to this week's Giant Sword Podcast. I'm your party leader, Nick Lynn. To my side are my noble and hairy are Taylor Hoyt.
Hey, good to be here.
And our new member, Chris.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. You've actually been my friend for a long time, but we haven't spoken for a while.
Yeah, exactly. It's on and off sometimes.
Yeah, how have you been, man?
Pretty good. Trying to catch up on the backlog.
We all have backlog projects going on right now, right, Taylor?
We do. You know what's funny about Chris? He was the one that introduced me to the Atelier series. I remember when I first bought a PS3 back in 2010. That was like one of the first games I bought because we were talking online back when you guys were really into fighting games and stuff like that. And yeah, got me hooked on those games.
Fantastic game.
Yeah, Verona and Toturi, awesome JRPGs.
They've been releasing so many, though. I haven't caught up with the most recent editions, but
is that Sophie?
On the PS3, I played quite a few of them.
The last couple haven't been great, but the one that just came out on PS4 came out earlier this year. Yeah, Atelier Sophie, I hear, is actually pretty good. So
I bought that and I have not opened it yet.
Yeah, I told Nick I want to borrow it at some point, but as we were talking about, oh, go ahead.
The last one I played was Maruru or something. I played Verona, Totori, and Maruru, I think the last one. And then after that, I've been playing so many other games.
Is Maruru the one that has the two characters you can pick?
No, that was... there was Shally, and there was Aisha, and then there was... I remember the characters. There's a girl with orange hair, and then there's a guy. That's the one you're thinking of. It has two different characters.
No, there's two different characters. One's a girl. They're both girls. One's like short-haired with short blue hair.
Yeah, that's Atelier Shally.
Okay.
Yeah, I played that one. It was okay.
It was all right.
I heard that one was all right.
Yeah, it was the last one on PS3.
I have never played those games, but
there's a time where NIS would just release stuff, and I would just automatically buy it. Like anything that would come up on their website, I would just buy it and play it. And then PS4 came out, and then I didn't have my PS3 hooked up anymore, and I did not want to have two systems hooked up at the same time. If PlayStation 4 had backwards compatibility, I'd be all over some of these games, but
totally
it's just inconvenient at this point.
Speaking of PS3, you know how hard it is to play games on that? Or when you first got your PS4, you're like, this is so much better.
Oh, the menus are so snappy.
Going back to the XMB.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that thing is...
I think just playing games in general on the PS3.
Well, the controller is like... I feel like the PS4 controller is such a step up in so many ways.
I think I in regards to like most games, I would say yes, but for fighters, I actually like the PS3 controller better. I wish I could use that on my PS4 because it just seems flatter to me for fighting games.
I get you, but I don't use the controller anymore. I
graduated to fight sticks.
I use the fight stick now. I didn't graduate. Leonard wanted me to use Leonard said to use a fight stick, so I got a fight stick. And
I got the fight stick that came with Tekken 7, the Hori one. It's a good fight stick. I just never really got into using. I don't really have a setup, a table, or anything to kind of. I mean, some people use it on their laps, but
yeah,
I haven't really found my comfort zone with that yet.
Plus, you got to relearn everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And you're already like godlike with Hakumen on BlazBlue, and you don't want to learn that again.
That's it.
But,
and hopefully soon with Akuma on Street Fighter V.
Yeah, hopefully. If he's not too different. I heard he's more like he's like a mixture of Akuma and Oni from Street Fighter 4.
Yeah, I was really a big Oni guy, but Akuma I liked a lot.
All right, so let's go to our main topic of this week is the big game of the decade has come out finally, and Taylor's actually already beaten it. I've played it. Chris is a little farther than me. Final Fantasy 15.
Yes, that's all we're talking about this episode. We're just going to dive deep. We're going to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but this is the JRPG of the year. Some might say Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I feel like most people want to talk about this one. or want to hear our hot takes more than anything else as far as JRPGs go.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it is, the RPG of the decade. I mean, it's been in development for a decade.
Yeah.
Many transformations from platform to title.
Now, I'm curious, Chris. I kind of know Nick's history. What have you followed it since the Versus days, or were you just like, I'm going to pick this up and see what happens?
This was the game that I would tell all my Xbox fans, like, yeah, Versus 13 is coming out on PS3. That's it. It's over. Console war's over after that. So I've been following it a long, long time. And, now that I actually have it in my hands, I got the Ultimate Collector's Edition, too. So I shelled out a lot of money for this game. I think it was like $270.
Wow.
I've been waiting for this game a long time, and I was like, I'm going to get the top edition. Whatever. When they announced it at that Square Enix event, that same night, within minutes, I was on the website to order that thing.
Nice.
Well, you are right. This game did come out when the console war was over. I mean, the PS4 did win.
Yeah, it's over.
Yeah, well, yeah, pretty much.
So now let me ask you this before we move on to our impressions. Has there been anything that you've remembered from when it was known as Versus, or even when it was re-revealed as 15, where you're like, oh man, I can't wait to play that in the game, and now you're like, oh, well, it's not in the game, or it's different. Like, are there any expectations that have carried over?
When Versus was first shown, you were able to play as multiple characters. So,
right.
And it looked like they were trying to make the games be a game for everybody, which they still try to do it now. But it looked like, when you're playing as Prompto, you're actually playing a game that is almost like a third-person shooter. Then you're playing as Noctis, where, you're getting the gameplay we're really seeing now, except obviously now it's a little bit more flashier and advanced and probably faster paced and smooth than it was when they showed the trailers back then.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know how much of the trailers are actually real gameplay versus just a tech demo or whatever,
Exactly.
But, so in regard to that, I think you had a lot more control of your party members back then. And then they decided to streamline it. Maybe they said it was too complicated, or maybe it was the scope was too grand for the development team, maybe to release it in a timely manner. Maybe we would have seen it in another 5 years if they were going to let us have full control of every party member.
Right. Well, the one thing that was sort of like a bummer, and they got out in front and said this wasn't going to be in the game, but like, in Versus, the game was going to start out with the invasion of Insomnia, and they kind of threw that into the Kingsglaive movie, and I kind of think it's a bit of a mistake that they made that a movie and you weren't able to play that, because my personal feeling, I feel like the game has a really bad opening. Like, it's really slow, and especially if you haven't seen the movie, it's like, what's happening? And I have seen the movie, and I'm like, man, for those that never saw the Kingsglaive movie, like, they're going to have no idea what's going on, or the opening is going to have not as big of a punch. You know what I mean?
And I agree with you, and I think, either they should have bundled it with every game, but then again, any fan is really going to go out and see the movie anyway. The casual people that really aren't into Final Fantasy that might just get this game, they may not be too caring of the story, but the game did show glimpses of certain scenes of the movie, but they didn't want to show too much because they wanted the player to go and buy the movie. They wanted to kind of capitalize on whatever they can on the game too. But yeah, the opening was kind of weak. It also ran parallel to the anime too. You know what I mean? A little bit. It kind of overlapped.
Yeah, it was the anime kind of in a weird way I thought the first episode was like not very interesting, but then when you started digging into the different characters and how they got to know Noctis as they grew up, that was a little bit more interesting. But
right.
Can you imagine what the intro would have been like? Just the invasion's already going on and you have to escape.
That would have been awesome. That would have been a heck of an opening where you're just like, you're sitting in your citadel or whatever, and then there's like an invasion, and there's this crazy battle, and then you have to escape in your car. That would have been an amazing opening.
You escape in your car, and then suddenly like this giant scorpion mech falls right in front of you, and you have to fight it.
It'll be great.
And then the macro reactor explodes.
Well, I'm curious because, I mean, if they were to do an opening like that, they would have to make Noctis a little bit stronger than what they initially gave us, what Noctis was able to do, you know what I mean? And then maybe somehow make him lose his powers, or when his father was killed, the magic that he imbues in everybody kind of weakens, and then he has to go on this quest to regain his power after that type of opening. And I think it would have been cool because it could have showcased what's to come if you really customize you and fully flesh out your character.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So
Now we need to invent a time machine. Go back, tell them how to, start the game, and yeah.
Well, then we might have to wait another 3 years, so I don't know if I'd want to do that.
I mean, Final Fantasy 16 might be out by then.
Or they would show us tons of trailers of 16 already, and then by the time 15 comes out, we're already waiting for 16. Just like now we're waiting for FF7 episodic content that's coming out.
Wouldn't that have been the ultimate, like, ridiculous thing? Is like in the background they're working on 16, and 16 is like almost ready to go when 15 is done.
I guarantee they're already working on 16.
I'm sure.
I'm sure on E3, either next year or the year after, we're going to see some heavy footage on 16.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
You never know. Well, I
think they're going to be heavily focused on Kingdom Hearts 3.
Either that, or they're going to make sequel, or maybe they'll do it through DLC rather than separate games. But they're probably going to do what they did with FF13 to make some type of spin-offs to 15 a few times before making the next entry.
Final Fantasy 15-3, Sadie returns.
But yeah, why don't we get into the game itself? I don't really know where to start, but I think the thing that's the most different than past Final Fantasies is the combat, the kind of open world nature, the action combat. Lightning Returns got into that a little bit, but it was still very turn based, and the open world was very restrictive. So Nick, this is really, I mean, you haven't played as many Final Fantasies. I don't know how many. What's your history with Final Fantasy, Chris? Have you played a lot of them?
I have every single one of them,
okay.
Other than 13. I had 13 at one point when I hit the bargain bin, and then I traded it in for probably $2 or $3 because I was just bored. I felt like it was a chore going through that game. I was just holding up on the analog stick.
It was a chore.
And mashing X. You know what I mean? Like it was just characters are unappealing to me. It was like they took the FF10 formula and they just kind of constricted it, made it even smaller and tighter, and just basically a roller coaster ride. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Totally. Okay. Well, then for Nick, what have your thoughts been since it's moved away from the turn-based to the more action stuff and the open world nature of it all?
I do not like the open world nature at all.
Well, okay, go on.
I just don't.
Oh, that's a sin, dude. I think you should stop while you're ahead, man. Open world is part of Final Fantasy.
No, I don't like the Western open world style it goes for. It's just been. I've played so many games that are just like it. That's just like, they're trying to copy this when it's finally going out of style.
Yeah, I remember you told me like when you found out that the rest stops or the little diners were basically just Ubisoft towers that reveal parts of the map, and I'm like, they kind of are, huh?
I don't know. I was just like, no.
You know what though? I think they had it. You know, like I said, like right when you see the opening before you get to the start menu, it's like a Final Fantasy for everyone. I think they needed that type of hub to kind of mark the map and say, hey, we need to steer the player in the right direction. Or he'll be running around aimlessly or getting lost. You know, it's not like the map is broken up into zones. Like FF12 started the whole for Final Fantasy series behind the character camera while in the world map rather than the zoomed out overworld that the previous Final Fantasies have had. Yeah. So it makes the world look a lot bigger. And in 15's case, now there's no more zones. There's no, going through the north zone, south, east, or west. You're in a big world map that you could literally run in one direction for a long time. And you could easily get lost, too, unless you're constantly stopping the game to look at the map. You know what I mean?
I do constantly stop the game to look at the map to see where I am.
I will say I think most people will agree with me. This is probably the best use of chocobos in any Final Fantasy. They feel so good to just run around, jump off stuff, like power slide. Like if you hit LT, you can kind of slide around corners, which is cool. Mm-hmm. Like they're just so much fun to ride. Yeah, drifting. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And you can customize it just from the get-go. Like if you do a couple chocobo races, it'll unlock more colors, but you can name your chocobo, you can make it whatever color you want, which I know like old school fans might be kind of angry, like, oh, you don't have to breed it like in 7, but I don't know, I think it's kind of cool that I'm like, sweet, I just start off with a red chocobo, this is awesome.
7 and FF9 both had that chocobo breeding where it was painfully long side quests just to change the color, and the colors came with different abilities too. I'm pretty sure in FF9 the gold, I forgot what color chocobo it is now. It's been a while. Is the one that could fly you to an optional boss
It's
that
the
you could
gold
fight
one.
in FF9. The
Yeah.
gold one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, FF7 had its colors that you needed to get for whatever reason, but probably fighting some emerald weapons or something.
I think gold got you to this is the only way you could land at the Knights of the Round Island, because the gold ones could walk on the water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
That's what you needed it for.
Yep. Basically.
Yeah. No, that's I can get over it. Like, I'm enjoying the game, but I am missing the very I miss creating my character. Like, I feel like the skill system's very weak. And I do miss like equipping my characters with awesome gear instead of just a weapon and a spell and a couple of accessories.
Yeah, to me, like, I know in Tactics, like, it was really heavy on like helmet and armor and stuff, but I feel like in other Final Fantasies, it didn't. At least the ones that I played and grew up with, there really wasn't a lot of that. Especially on 7, it was like you had your accessory slot, and then I think you had like a bangle slot or whatever, where you could put your materia, and I just keeping it
materia was the real customization, and then in FF8 they had the junctioning system, which is really nice. But I think Square Enix really was struggling with this whole idea of finding that middle ground between serving the fans and making them happy, and then, trying to get new people that could easily play the game. And they have an easy mode, which is a first for Final Fantasy. Usually Final Fantasy just have the standard difficulty, and that's it.
There's an easy mode?
Yeah, there's an easy mode. Easy and normal. But I can't imagine how easy is, because normal, it really isn't that challenging as of yet for me.
No, I haven't really died on,
because you could use
bosses.
your items. You could use your items. There's no cooldown. You know what I mean? So you can just keep yourself alive. And not only do you have really your HP hits 0, now you're in that last stand type mode where you can still get healed. And then your party members, they're in that mode, and then if they die, just give them a Phoenix down. Now they're healed fully. So, and there's no cooldown. So there's things they could tweak to make it more challenging.
Yeah, no, I think the real challenge comes in the end game, because like right now, like we were talking about before, I've beat the game and I'm kind of doing all the optional dungeons and like the really high level hunts, and some of that stuff is getting actually pretty challenging, even being at a high level and having really awesome gear and having all the items and stuff.
Right.
But like you were saying, you can kind of, if you have enough items, you can kind of just brute force your way through any fight, like just through attrition. Just stock up on elixirs and Phoenix downs, and eventually you'll get through it, as long as you're not just standing there letting the boss kill you.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to talk about, like, what about this game makes it a quote unquote makes it a Final Fantasy game? Like, what past elements have brought in? Because like Nick was saying, to me it very much feels like a Western open world game. Like, this totally reminded me of like a Skyrim or a Dragon Age or whatever you want to call it, just with how open it was, and the fast travel points and the side quest hubs and stuff like that. But yeah,
basically, I mean, people think open world is like, I mean, it's really just from the camera perspective. I mean, Square Enix, they've done world maps before. They just changed the camera in this game. FF12 had the world map similar, but with zones. But they also had the airship points that you could fast travel to around the world. So any big open world map, you need fast travel. So I don't think that's necessarily a Western thing. It's just a thing of convenience for the player. Because if the player had to run from one side of the map to the other side of the map all the time, that would just be a pain in the rear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was definitely a pain in the rear at the beginning.
Yeah.
What I think makes it a Final Fantasy is, you're getting the story, you're getting the Ascension board, which is very similar to the Sphere Grid or the license board from FF12. The gameplay is still very hybridish of Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Obviously, the enemies, the chocobos, the lore. I mean, the world still feels Final Fantasy to me. I don't think nothing like, it's not like when I think Western RPG, I think Witcher 3, which is pretty much my game of the year, probably game of the generation. I've sunk many hours into that game, but that game feels totally different than how Final Fantasy feels.
That's a good point. They do have recurring bosses, like I was mentioning, like as you do the higher level hunts, like, oh, I remember that, like that enemy and that and that type of thing. Like I've run into a cactuar in the desert a couple times. I'm like, oh, they threw this in there.
Tonberries, you know.
Yep.
I remember that's what the game does too. Sometimes I'll run into a random battle. I'm thinking I'm going to just mash my way through it. Then I'll be like, wait a second, that's a Tonberry. He's like doing mass damage with his little knife pokes, just like how we used to in the turn-based Final Fantasies.
Oh yeah.
So some of it's there. It's there. I mean, Final Fantasy fans will feel familiar.
Indeed.
Yeah. No, I guess you're right. That's a good point. Like, because I think what I always liked about Final Fantasy is that it had the open world nature, but then it had those very kind of streamlined story moments that helped you connect with the characters, that like sort of like pull you away from the open world. And the second half of the game definitely gets into that a lot. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but like it really, for story purposes, it really kind of sucks you in and makes you do some sort of more linear stuff. But I feel like Final Fantasy's kind of always done that. Like, even if you look back on 7 or 8, like I can remember in 7, like when you start disc 3 and like you're trapped inside the Sister Ray building or whatever, and you're trying to escape and stuff like that. So there's like so many moments where you don't have the option to just go off and explore and go wherever you want, but for story purposes, and it has that the endearing characters, which I feel like the cast of characters has been kind of divisive. Like, people that don't want to give it a chance, like, oh, it's just J-pop boy band host boys or whatever. But then you realize that personality is just it's really compelling, at least for me. I'm entertained by their conversations. I'm entertained. I really feel like these guys are actually friends and really looking out for each other. You really feel that character development amongst those four. You know what I mean? Yeah, and there's so many little things in the game that like help develop that. Like, so for example, like if you camp on the beach, like when you wake up, Gladiolus is like, all right, I'm going to challenge you to a run. And there's like this camaraderie there, and you go off for a little run. It's like this little mini event. Or like this happened recently where I was staying at a motel, and in the middle of the night, Noctis is like sitting on the roof, and Prompto comes up and he kind of just... Yep, I saw that scene too, yep. He just pours his guts out. I'm like, whoa, this is getting really real. I like this. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That was cool. I was kind of waiting for Ignis's moment, but that I haven't really come across anything like that for him. It's been I've come across some like cooking early in the morning scenes with him, and that's really it so far. You know what? I take that back. There was one where he's like, here, just stir this pot, and I'm sitting there stirring the pot, and like that was kind of it. But yeah. That was kind of cool, though, because he's kind of being, the mentor leader of the group. I remember I took this campsite, and Gladio, wakes me up to go catch this big legendary fish or something. And when I went to catch this fish, I swear, I think I must have spent at least like 35 minutes trying to reel this fucking fish in. Like, I had to pause the game and like take fucking breaks, you know what I mean? It was very, very long. I felt like my rod wasn't good enough, fishing rod, I was like, what the hell? Why is it taking so long? Like, I literally had like 50 health left on my rod, on the fishing rod, to catch this fish, and I was able to get it. It was torture. Oh, I've attempted that many times. I still haven't been able to catch it. I wonder if your fishing needs to be a certain level. Do you remember what level your fishing was at when you tried it? I think at that time it was like maybe 6. Oh, okay. So, I mean, when your controller's rumbling, you don't want to reel it in. You just want to kind of wait till your controller stops rumbling, and that tension isn't there, so that you're losing the least amount of health possible on that fishing line. Okay, yeah, because I know as Noctis levels up his fishing, I almost wonder if like it doesn't strain as much as you're reeling it in or whatever. So, because I'm only at level 4 or 5 on my fishing, so I wonder if I level that up a bit, it makes that a little easier.
I'm only level 2.
It's slacking. It really doesn't do much outside of like getting you fish for recipes for Ignis. I don't think it really does anything.
Yeah, I haven't really fished at all. I just been doing other stuff.
What's the max level? Is it? Do you guys know?
Everything's for 10 is 10.
Everything's 10. Okay.
Yeah. Because I've maxed out Prompto's picture taking, and I've almost done the cooking one, but the survival I think is going to take the longest because you basically just have to run everywhere. I'm like, well, that sucks because I can't ride my chocobo now. I have to just run everywhere.
I love how one of the abilities on the Ascension board is Prompto taking pictures while battling. You can take up to 5.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, why would you spend AP on this? Who would do that?
If you want more pictures, or if you run out of things to put AP into. I don't know.
I'm curious what they're going to do with that DLC where you get to play as these other characters. If that's going to kind of go back to what Versus was showing us, where these characters are actually going to play very, very differently, or if it's just going to be the same control scheme and they're just going to kind of reskin the character, take away the teleporting, and there you go. You have these characters.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what's really funny? As I play through the game, it's very obvious where the individual character story moments are going to be. So I'm really curious to see how those are going to play out. But yeah,
I got the part with Gladio. I could tell where his part's going to be. Because he comes back. Well, I don't want to give any spoilers, but earlier in the game, I could tell where Gladio is, that he goes off to fight somebody. I don't know who.
Yeah, it was very vague. He's like, "All right, guys, I got to leave for a little bit." I'm like, "Okay." He just doesn't explain it, and then he eventually just comes back. I'm like, "Okay."
Hey, what's up? Okay, you guys got to tell me this. Is there any other spells other than fire, blizzard, and thunder?
I mean, I think if you combine them enough, you turn them into something else, but, not really.
See, that's one thing
I would think you would. I mean, if you combine them with certain items, you should be able to get something else. But so far, all I've seen was, the basic levels and the secondary levels of those same spells. And then adding venom to it, or adding some type of side effect, or adding a healing effect to it. This game definitely de-emphasized magic. I mean, then again, you don't even use MP to use magic. It's all quantities, like FF8.
Yeah. The thing that I really wanted was, in Final Fantasy 12, what is the system you use for your teammates? What's it called?
The Gambit system.
Gambits, yes.
Where you could tell your party members certain conditions. This is what I want you to do.
Yes.
Because it's pointless to give them magic because they just use it without discretion. I mean, without scrutiny.
Yeah.
That's so. I wanted that in this game. Plus, I wanted more spells. So protect or cure, curaga.
Regen. I would have loved a regen spell.
And just have and then giving it to all the other guys and telling them it's if we're getting this low, cast this. I mean, still the same system. We have to, make the spells, but I want more. I
think to this day, that Gambit system was a very advanced system, and something that I thought really was going to be prominent in other Final Fantasy games moving forward, where you're only going to be controlling one character at a time, and you have these party members in a game where there is no random battle screen shatters. You're in a battle. You're going on the world map seamlessly into battle, seamlessly out of battle. You would think a Gambit system's a must. Hey, expand on it. They've already had they could copy paste that system and it would work in Versus. The only other game that I know that's done that was Dragon Age, but that was a kind of a watered down version of it too.
What about Persona 3 with the tactic system?
Yeah, a little bit. But that was even.
Oh yeah, that was
about the same time.
It was so limited though.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, I still beat it though.
Yep. Yeah.
Come on, Taylor, you could do it.
Yeah, I got what Nick's talking about is I got to the final boss in Persona 3 and I tried many, many times and I couldn't beat it because unlike Persona 4 where you can control your entire party, in Persona 3 your party members just do whatever they want and I couldn't control them. And what was really pissing me off is the final boss rotates its weakness and so what I wanted my party members to do, I'm like, okay, when it's weak, use the spell that it's weak to. And instead of doing that, they would do random buffs or heal. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? Stop. And so Nick was saying he used his main character as just the healer and everybody else just did whatever.
Yeah, you got to turn your main character to a white mage.
Exactly. That's what I did. He was the white mage. And I made everyone else. I had Aegis do physical attacks. And then I had, I forgot the characters. Mitsuru and what's the Chie? What's the Chie?
Oh, Chie?
It's not Chie. Who's the Chie?
The girl, the girl with the
Yukari.
Oh, Yukari, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I had Yukari and Mitsuru, and they would just cast their super Bufu and ice and wind spells, and I would just destroy everything. That's because I would give them a bunch of accessories to increase their damage like crazy, and that's what they did, and that's how I won. It did take a long time though. That boss was 30 minutes long.
All right, enough of Persona. This is about Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Hey, we can talk about Persona when Persona 5 comes out.
Hey, that's what this podcast is all about. We go on tangents, man.
We do.
Tangents.
So I don't know. So Chris, what is there any specific aspect that you kind of want to highlight or discuss that we haven't really talked about yet?
I am kind of disappointed with the lack of like real combo control. It's very to me the game is smooth, but when you're in the middle of a combo, you're holding down the square button, and then you want to go into a dodge or a parry. It still feels kind of clunky to me. If I had control of my button timing and the character was responsive, attacks were responsive to how I press my buttons, I'd be able to have, I would feel that I'd have more control of my character in terms of a dodge and going into an attack.
Counter, and then frame trap, and then
combo.
And...
I feel like
it doesn't be that but it'd be a combo system.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely felt like I'd be in the middle of attacking an enemy, and then I'd try to dodge because it tells you when an enemy's about to attack you, and I just get hit anyway. I'm like, okay, well, that was too delayed, or I couldn't cancel out of moves or something. So, yeah, no, that definitely gets annoying. Although where I'm at, I have maybe one of the best items in the game. I did the secret dungeon, and I got this thing called a Black Hood, and it basically just auto dodges for you. Like, you don't have to dodge anymore; it just does it automatically.
Really?
Yeah, it says the ability on is you dodge every hit, so it's really nice to just.
But it uses MP though. But the funny thing is, you can get another accessory, which is like you never have to use MP. Like your dodges don't take it MP, so you just dodge forever and you just don't die.
And as long as there's warp points, you shouldn't even care if it's using your MP.
That's true.
Side point.
Yeah.
Instant recovery.
I have to say, I really like the warp strike. I use that a lot, especially because if you level up that ability node, like if you kill an enemy with a warp strike, you get AP for it. So like, I just am constantly just warp striking, and it just feels cool. I like in games when there's cool movement or a cool way to like control your character, and I just love how he just warps across the screen and like crits an enemy and knocks him down, and then you just beat up on him. It's so much fun.
That's what I like to do. That warp to a guy, knock him over, warp to a warp point, and then warp to another guy. Mm-hmm. That's always fun to do.
Yep, very very neat. I like that a lot for sure.
Always using the daggers though. Always use the daggers.
You know what? I kind of just stuck with what the game gave me at the beginning, like a sword, a spear, a great sword, and then like either magic, or if I got a new item, I would try it out. Like I recently just got the Armiger shuriken things, and I've been playing around with those. Those are pretty fun actually. But they don't. Yeah, they're very hard to control because they fly, and then you have to wait for them to come back and stuff like that. It's
interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's unlike any of the other weapons in the game though, which is nice. But I have to say, like, this is maybe harder for you guys to judge because you're not as far as I am, or since I beat the game. I felt like, and I'm fully willing to admit that I maybe had a lot of baggage carried over from Versus, or I just had higher expectations. But I felt like the story didn't hit as hard as I was hoping to at certain points. Like, especially like, okay, this isn't really a spoiler. I don't feel bad at saying this at all because it's in the movie and they've put out in trailers, but when Noctis and the group get to Golden Key and they find out that King Regis died, it just doesn't matter because you don't see it happen. It's just like, and the king's dead. And we're just like, okay, was that supposed to hit hard? Because that didn't matter to me at all because you don't see it happen. He's not even in the game as an in-game character model.
I also felt that even in the movie, they kind of underportrayed him. I thought the movie was, average. It wasn't great. I mean, it's pretty much on the same level. Advent Children, maybe a little bit better, in my opinion. But King Regis, I mean, the movie should have been more about him rather than, say, the Kingsglaive to a point because King Regis is supposed to be the pivotal moment in the game. And the game doesn't really expand upon him other than what you see. At least in, I'm on chapter 8. And I've seen him a little bit at the beginning. They may talk about him in passing, but I really still feel like I don't really know the character as much as I should to create that attachment, to feel that loss that you should be feeling, the impact that you're talking about.
Yeah, this is no Eris in Final Fantasy VII because you're with her the whole time. You're like having these moments with her, like when you're sitting on the church and sitting in the park. Oh, come on. Game's 20 years old.
If they don't know by now, then that's a shame on them.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think Maddie knows, and when she plays the remake and that happens, she's going to cry, and I just know it.
But yeah.
One of my gripes too was like, since I got 40 hours in, I'm on chapter 8. I'm doing all these side quests because, I never know what I can do now and what may not be available later in the game. I'm trying to do everything for full completion, but I'm sure the way they structured it, you could pretty much do anything at any time. But I wish there was like a level sync where, all right, you're doing the story dungeon and it's going to sync it like an MMO, like Final Fantasy 14, where it's going to sync it back down to a level to keep the challenge up, which they said they're going to do in a patch, supposedly. Create level caps for certain things or allow the player to control it. Maybe, I don't know. But that would have helped too, because at this point, I'm sure at the level I'm at now, from doing all these side quests, I could probably just, blitz through the game, the story mode, and have no challenge whatsoever.
Yeah, I'll just say, even, compared to where you're at and where I was at, or what level I was when I was at the same point as you guys were, I didn't think any of the bosses were very challenging. There's one boss kind of near the end of the game that's pretty tough, but other than that, I felt like most of the bosses were not very interesting, were very easy. I mean, Nick was talking about the Titan fight, and I don't feel bad talking about that because I was in an E3 presentation, but it's just like, you're kind of just sitting there, and you're pairing, and then it's just sort of over. I'm like, okay.
I think mine was worse because it was at night. It was completely like black, and I'm like, "What's going on?"
I was at night too. Mine was at night too, and there was at one point where Titan was just doing the same move over and over again. And I have my girlfriend watching, and she's just like, "Is that all he does?" I'm like, listen, this is not a representation of the game, right? The game's awesome. I don't know what's going on here.
No, I think the worst because I remember I've seen the E3 demo. I'm like, okay, I got to use Blizzard, and he puts his hand down, and I'm like, okay, Blizzard, bam, it doesn't work. And then randomly the game tells me, luckily Prompto and Gladius brought Blizzard with you, and they use it, and now his arm gets shattered. I'm like, what? I just did that.
Yeah. This is no Kronos from God of War 3, where you're actually, or hell, I mean, Square Enix wants to make that epic set piece big boss battles, but it felt way too clunky in the game. You know what I mean? And I've heard from you, Leviathan isn't much better, but I'll see that when I get there.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil Leviathan.
Yeah.
I'll just say this: the Leviathan encounter was the one I was looking forward to more than anything in the game, because when they re-revealed Versus as 15, when they first cut to gameplay and like Noctis is like diving through the window and there's like water like rushing all over the place, like this is gonna be so much fun to play, and that's just not in the game. And I was so disappointed because I'm like, man, I wanted that to be the coolest part of the game.
It looked like Noctis had a cover system rolling from cover to cover, jumping through. It looked.
It looked like Uncharted.
Yes.
Wait,
but you know what, though? I also think, though, the game being multi-platform, I'm not saying that that's the reason, but, when they have a hard time even releasing the game as Versus 13, they have to go to another console to recreate the game, merge with the Unreal Engine to make this game, and now you're making it on 2 platforms. Now you want to make it on PC. If they were focusing maybe on one platform, I'm sure they could have polished up a lot more things. But the development team's already slow. Yeah. So now they're stretching even more than making a multi-platform.
No, I think they were definitely stretched for time. And I'm taking this with a big grain of salt, but there was supposedly a guy that came out, I want to say it was either a long time ago or recently, or maybe somebody just posted this recently, but it was a developer that was doing, I want to say it was either on Reddit or 4chan or something like that, and he was talking about like, yeah, we were really stretched for time, like the game was really only developed in like the last 3 years, and they had to get it out by the end of the year, so there was just a ton of stuff that was cut or not done to the standard, or they with the impact that they hoped they could. And like knowing that and looking back on the game, it's like really clear like certain parts of the game suffered, or like you get to an area and it's like, well, hearing about this part of the game in pre-release, you'd expect there to be more, but then you get to this certain part and then you're there for 5 minutes and then you leave. I'm like, that was like one of the supposedly big parts of the game. Like, why were we only there for a brief moment in time? But I guess stuff just gets cut.
It gets to the point too where people's visions are just so big. Look at I'm a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. Love Metal Gear Solid, but 5 was the biggest disappointment ever. And not only did he, this is the first big multi-platform simultaneous release for Metal Gear Solid 5, but they left the whole chapter out. Like the game did not have a proper ending.
It just sort of stops.
They have a scene where you're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Something. Metal Gear's getting spoilers. Metal Gear's getting hijacked. You're like, all right, how are we gonna get this thing back? Nope, game ends.
Okay.
Like, oh, this character escaped. How are we gonna get him back? Oh, nope, game's over. Leave it to the player's imagination. You know what I mean? Like, and so you could tell, like, he just had a vision. It was kind of way too big, and the publisher said, "Hey, this is the deadline. You have to release it at this time," and then he cut corners at that point.
Yeah.
So
I'll say, like, Final Fantasy 15 is at least a complete game. Like, everything that, like, story wise, it all gets wrapped up and everything makes sense. But I just felt like I was saying with the King Regis moment, there's more moments throughout the game that I'm like, I wish that had a little more oomph behind it, or wish it could have been delivered a little bit better. But it's still.
I could tell you, like, this just happened to me in my game.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you what by names, but you probably all remember this. Is when you get your car back, and Iris is like, they came and this person died, and I'm like, who?
Right.
No, I couldn't remember who that was either. I'm like, was that supposed to be important?
I remembered who that was. I mean, I don't. It's probably because it was within the same day. I just got to that city and then also did all that other stuff. So I kind of remembered who it was.
I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
I think I know who it is too.
But I'm like, who? Oh, okay, I get it now.
It was, yeah. I mean, and they're like, oh no, this guy did so much for us. We got, they're thanking him for everything. And it's like, yeah, but we only saw him in like one cutscene, maybe two.
That's exactly.
And speaking of Iris, I gotta say she's one of my favorite characters in the game, and she's in it a lot, but I feel like she could have been in the game even longer than that.
Her voice actor sounds so familiar.
It does. I want to
same with Prompto. Prompto is definitely Yuri, isn't he?
No, Prompto is a Tails character. He's the guy from Zestiria, the main guy from Zestiria.
Yes. Okay, that's what I hear.
Yeah, I forget what the character's name is, but
and yeah, that girl. What's she sound like? She sounds like someone so familiar.
And I gotta have to go on IMDb or something after and look her up too, because
I remember familiar. Now. Ashley from Resident Evil 4. That's what she sounds like.
It could be. Well,
maybe
we'll have to look at it.
I haven't played Resident Evil 4 in a while. I love that game.
Leon! Help me, Leon!
Oh my god.
I just played that recently, so that's why it's fresh in my head.
I'm already seeing Resident Evil 7 for another podcast when that comes out.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. I don't know about that game, but anyway. I don't even know what we're talking about. Okay, so let's talk about dungeons a little bit, because I honestly feel like the dungeons in this game are maybe some of the strongest parts, as far as like just not knowing what's around each corner, and like each one is fairly uniquely designed. And I say that because I'm having to go, once you beat the game and you've cleared out all the dungeons for the first time, you get something that basically incentivizes you to go back through all the dungeons again. So I'm going through all the points. Yeah, there's like these just doors that you can't go through until you get a key later. And some of them are cool in the sense that they're not just caves. Like some of them are like these mines. Some of them are like forests that you go through. Like they're like outside dungeons, which is kind of neat. I think one of my favorites is the ice one. I think you guys have probably got through that at this point in the game.
So is that? I think so.
Yeah, yep. I remember that. You're sliding down and you having to reach, depending on how you slide down an area, you could reach other ledges that have items on it. And
yeah,
I remember that.
I remember fighting a giant arachne, and it was on like a really it was like on top of this huge tower, like this huge piece of ice, and it would hit me and I'd fly off the thing, and then I'm like, oh great, now I got to do this entire thing over again.
Typical Final Fantasy, except now you don't have to worry about random battles constantly hampering your ability to get back to where you were.
But there are some random battles sometimes.
There are.
The monsters will just randomly spawn, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, I was fighting some imps in one of these dungeons, and I killed them all. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to walk back behind. I'm going to walk back, like, a couple steps. And then randomly there's, like, 5 thunder bombs and, like, 5 more imps. I'm like, what the hell? Where'd you come from?
I gotta say, like, bombs are annoying in past Final Fantasies. They are just downright infuriating in 15, because what happens is if they blow up, they spawn smaller ones, and they just, like, if you can't get a handle on killing these things, they just never go away. Like there's a dungeon at some point where you're going down these stairs and there's 3 thunder bombs and they just kept blowing up and I just couldn't kill them. I just kept dying over and over and over. I'm like, and especially in the tighter areas where like the camera is really bad and you can't even see what you're doing. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep dying and dying and dying.
That's when you
this is
throw
awesome.
a Blizzara.
Yeah, I didn't have any magic down there, so I just had to.
Some of those dungeons, yeah, when it's real close and tight corridors, the camera angle gets real wonky, real wacky.
Taylor, this sounds like a game that I really
the very
like.
First,
really like, huh?
the very first dungeon where you fight the Arachne, I think that the mines, I believe it was. It was some spider boss you fight in there.
Yeah.
That first boss was my camera angle was constantly like clipping my character.
I think my camera was like behind a bed, and I couldn't see past that bed. And I'm like, just keep pressing circle, just keep pressing circle, I'll win.
Then you had that floating light or magic or whatever that kept hitting you if you just walk into it. I was like, oh my god, this is annoying, too tight.
Yeah, no, it definitely can be annoying at some parts.
I think it's funny that
there was one night I was playing and I was like in the Trestholm dungeon, and that dungeon was extremely long. I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be another 20-minute dungeon. I was in there for like over an hour. I had to go back, find these 4 switches to open this one door.
Oh my god, yeah, I know which one you're talking about. That's one of the longer ones. That one's kind of annoying.
That one, I was like, because I'm always doing all these side quests. 40 hours in chapter 8, I hit this dungeon because I'm doing a level 26 quest. Now all of a sudden I'm seeing like level 40 enemies in here because I forgot what quest I was doing. I was looking for the headlights for the car customization. And, usually when I do these quests, it brings me to these way higher level dungeons, which I happen to explore. And then I find this really strong boss at the end of it. And then I'm like, should I have done this later? I don't know. But at least the game gives you the freedom to do it, I guess.
Yeah, no, there's definitely parts where that's happened. Like I remember there's something they're called like the Bolve Mines or something, and I had the same thing. I had to kill some like goblins or something, and the vast majority of that dungeon is like level 7 goblins. And I'm like, oh, this is fine. And then I'm like walking across this catwalk, and I just see like this. It's not called a Ronin. It's like the higher level of a Ronin, like those like samurai guys. And it's just Yojimbo. That's what it was. It was like a level 50 Yojimbo, and I'm just like sitting there, and I can't quite make it out. It's like in the shadows, and it just slowly walks towards me and just slices me and one shots me. Like, okay, well, that's great. And that's like the only high level monster in that whole dungeon, but it's meant to guard one of the armigers, I think, or armigers, however you say it. But yeah, it's really annoying.
That's another thing too. Like I'm finding all these armigers. I'm like, is this supposed to be a story related thing I'm supposed to find these, or am I like skipping segments? Like, when you go to the forest, you find one, and I'm like, I don't know if I should have went here already. But I guess it's as soon as you can find them, you can find them.
Yeah, I think like only like 6 of them are story ones, and the rest are just you find on your own.
Yeah,
Is there a point in the story where you have to find these, or can you actually beat the game without them?
No, I beat the game without them. I think I beat the game, and I still needed to find like 3 or 4 more. Because the
way the story portrays it, it seems like you have to get all of them.
Yeah, it's weird. Like it does come across that way, especially the way they're introduced. Like cores, like you must find all of these, and I wonder if that's just a setup as hey, here's more side quests to do if you want to do it.
But he also says that we don't know where all the locations are,
which doesn't make any sense, but story-wise, but that's fine. And some of them really are like way off the beaten path, and you'd like never find them if you're not looking for them, type of deal. Have you guys encountered? I don't know if either of you got this far yet. I don't think so. But have you encountered the Dragoon lady yet?
Yes, I did.
I have not.
You have not? Okay. All I was just going to say is she is way more in that game than I ever expected. Because from the Versus days, I don't know if you remember this trailer, Chris, but it was like when they first debuted, it was like just 10 straight minutes of gameplay. The segment they showed is I think it's in Insomnia. I don't really know.
Yeah, the one where he's on the flying platform.
Right. Yep.
Going to Insomnia, he's fighting. Then there's a behemoth, I believe, in that trailer, or some monster he's fighting too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's fighting you on this platform and flying all over the place. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a cool boss fight. And then like in the game, she's like in it a lot, which is really weird. Which I didn't expect, but she turns out to be a really cool character. But and then on the total opposite. I'm not going to say who, but there's other characters you expect to be a huge part of the story that are barely in it, and I'm like, okay, that's really weird.
No, I love fighting this boss in one of the military bases early on in the game. He's like, oh, I have this really strong mech, and it's me, this person, and then you kill him, and then you're like, oh, he's dead now.
Yeah, that was really weird because I'm like, was that supposed to be somebody that we cared about?
Yeah,
like, I don't understand.
It's like, do we know who this person is?
Yeah.
So that's happened a lot in this game. It's like, it's me. Okay, I'm dead now. Get that a lot.
Those little paper champions that try to fight you.
Exactly.
The paper champions are like that.
I got pretty messed up when I was getting my car back. Because it was telling me to summon Ramu, and I couldn't summon him because I kept pressing.
Oh my god, it took me forever. I was like holding it, but I wasn't holding it long enough.
Yeah, and I was like,
everybody, you have to hold it down for an abnormally long time for you to summon somebody.
Yeah, I like all these mechs started piling up. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna use this big like gun that I see. I can keep shooting them, and then randomly Ramu just grabs me. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I did it.
I reloaded my game twice, thinking I ran into a glitch because I didn't.
I thought my controls. I thought my controllers were broken. Yeah, me too. And I was like, no, not my controller. This is new. We keep ragging on this game, but for some reason we all like it.
Yeah,
this is a refreshing Final Fantasy coming after 13, which I played a little bit of 13.2, barely touched 13.3, and I played maybe 20 hours of 13. And this game's, while some traditional fans will be maybe not like this combat system, but the game really does give you that make you feel familiar like you did in the previous games with the world, the enemies in the world, the chocobos, the character development of the story is good, but not as compelling. And for some, it won't be as compelling as it leads you to believe it will be. But it is a darker Final Fantasy.
It is darker, like... Wait till you get going to the second half of the story. It gets pretty dark for sure. But no, like it's weird. I'm sitting here ragging on it too, but I'm like played over 50 hours. Like obviously it has its hooks in me. Like the combat is so good. Like the flow of getting side quests, going out, doing them, going through the dungeons, finding these secret weapons. One thing I was really hoping in this game that there'd be a lot of secrets, and there are so many secrets. Like I was telling Nick about the secret dungeon. You can't get there until you get the flying version of the regalia. That dungeon is ridiculous. It's so unlike anything you've ever seen in a Final Fantasy before.
It's great.
It's really long. At least for me, it was really long. Maybe a more skilled player could get through it quicker. But it's really cool. I don't want to ruin it, but it's neat. So once you get there, it's like, oh wow, they went all. And the really weird thing is, it's like they put so much effort into that, and it's like really long and it's really elaborate, but like it's a side thing. Like a lot of people probably won't even find it. Like I can't believe they didn't put something like that more into the main story, but
it's true.
It's true.
and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the DLC for the game too. I mean, unless they're going to be like just separate games where like you're not using anything relating to your save file. It's just its own little episode story separate from the game, or if they're going to integrate into the game and actually, make it, compelling. I know they're going to add a new game plus. So when they add all these new features, the new game plus will help because you get to keep all your stuff and then go through the level cap system that they're talking about and things like that. So I'm hoping that the DLC is seamlessly into the game, may fit into the main game, not just separate entities.
I'm hoping. Okay, this is what my plan is. All right, I'm gonna beat the game in like vanilla version, and then I'm gonna wait for the complete version to come out, right? And then I'm gonna play the game again, and I want to see how different it is.
That'll be interesting.
It's like a completely different game because there's actually an intro, like you actually play the invasion. It's like, okay, well then,
That'd be amazing. Well, they did say that there's one chapter that they're going to go back and do a lot of work for because it's like easily the weakest part. But yeah, like one thing that really has me excited, they said like part of their long-term roadmap is that they're going to constantly introduce new like limited time hunts and monsters and stuff like that, because that's kind of the coolest part for me is like going back through old environments and finding these huge monsters that may or may not be familiar to, you know, Final Fantasy fans and taking them down, which is really cool. And then they said something about like a holiday pack, and I don't know what that means, if that's literally just everybody wears a Santa hat or if they're going to decorate like all the towns and make them look cool and stuff like that.
I play a lot of Final Fantasy 14 also, and Square Enix is really good at making all that seasonal events, limited time, collaborations with other either animes or other types of games, like the yokais. They just had a big event with the yokais in Final Fantasy 14, which are like, I personally don't really know what the games are like, but it's almost like a little Pokemon spin-off type game where you're capturing these yokai, these type of monsters or whatever.
Yokai Watch?
Yeah. They had a collaboration with them where you could actually get those monsters in Final Fantasy 14, and you grind with them and you get different type of weapons for your characters and stuff. So I'm sure with 15, they're going to try to emulate that MMO, keep the players hooked and coming back for more type updates for it, because they could probably capitalize a lot on it, but
sounds like
they have to balance it between free and paid. You can't just charge for everything either.
Right. Yeah.
Sounds like a game we played before. Starts with W.
I don't know. What is it?
It has white in it.
Oh, God.
Oh, White Knight?
You know what's really interesting? They did mention something about creating like a avatar mode or some kind of online mode. I'm like, how is this game going to have any kind of...
the co-op. They said something about co-op.
I don't know how that's going to work. Are they talking about just doing the hunts?
This game is sounding more and more like White Knight Chronicles. I'm scared.
I would actually be pretty down for that, because the hunts are like... Your other party members are kind of useless outside of like doing tag team moves. So it'd be really nice to be able to play with other party members. Like, okay,
But I wonder though, are they going to be able to, like, you invite them into your world? Now they're in your world. They can't really alter your world, but they'll just be in it to help you, like in White Knight, how they did it.
And then
but
soon
the difference between this and White Knight is this game actually has a budget and funding behind it. White Knight, they were doing that with scraps,
I also heard another rumor that you're going to be able to create your own towns, and depending on how you create your towns, your shops are going to have like different items,
and you can make money that way.
That's also White Knight Chronicles, by the way. Just telling you.
Hey, you know what? I'm all for it, because I need some more gil. Actually, you know what? Speaking of which, I wanted to ask you, those those treasure items that are on my list, can I sell all those? Do I actually need them for crafting or something related to that? Because I have a bunch of them. I barely sell anything.
Those treasure items could be used for spells and crafting. But I sell. If I have like at least 40 of them or 30 of them, I sell them. I sell like 20 of them or something like that.
Yeah,
Shattered timepiece or some of the trophy fish that I capture. I think I could sell those too, because there's two different fishes you can capture. The ones you could eat, and then the ones you could sell. Other ones.
I would sell the fish because, like I've said, I haven't really seen a purpose for fish outside of cooking them. And then the other items, they're really only useful. So if you go back to Sid at the at Hammerhead, he can upgrade your weapons, and there are certain weapons that need certain items. But honestly, you'll probably find better weapons just playing the game normally. Like, I don't really think it's worth it. So I would, if you're really in need of gil, I would just sell them. Otherwise, save them for magic spells. That's really what they're best for. Because like I said, I'm sitting here 50 hours in, and I've got a crap ton. I'm like, I don't even know if I've ever used any of them. Like you're saying, the shattered timepiece, like I don't know if I have used that for anything. Are the best weapons in the game, I would assume, are crafted, not found, right? It's probably a little bit of half and half. I bought the strategy guide, and I've been looking at like just pure attack power and what's best. Some of them are crafted, and then some are you find in the post game, which is really weird. To me, it's weird that they save the best items until after you beat the game. But
That's how every Final Fantasy has been, pretty much, for the most part.
Yeah.
Usually, it's after you beat the game, or in or when you beat the game in Final Fantasy, your save file is always right before you beat the game. So by the time you really have access to it, most of the game's already done.
That's true. So yeah, because the final boss and like everything leading up to the final boss is not terribly difficult. Like all those items are for beating like high level hunts or like the extra dungeon bosses and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but
all right. Here's the big question, the last question: Has this game fulfilled your Final Fantasy itch?
It's really weird because it does and it doesn't feel like Final Fantasy in a lot of different ways. Like you were saying, to me it feels so much like a Western RPG because I've played and replayed Dragon Age Inquisition. It's one of my favorite games this generation, and it feels like that mixed with like an Ubisoft game. But then it also does have, like we were talking about, like chocobos and these monsters that we're familiar with and stuff like that.
I can't take the reference to the Ubisoft, because every Ubisoft game I've played is riddled with bugs, glitches, and like, I mean, just because of the ins and the talking to them and getting showing stuff on your map. But I can't just say that's a Ubisoft thing.
But this,
because even then, like Assassin's Creed, they were very mediocre games.
Yeah, but these games are riddled with bugs too. I mean, when they're the side quests talking, I mean, this is what they look like, right? They're just like, hey, so I have this quest for you, man, and it's just like they're looking around. They're not even talking to the person. They're like looking behind them. It's like, what are you doing?
Oh, did you see that lady in that town where all the women work? I forgot what that town's called now.
Lestalum.
Yeah, Lestalum. The graphics on her is so much worse than the graphics on everything else around. The one that the power plant lady.
Oh yeah.
It's like permanent graphic glitch just for that character model. But yeah, but I mean, those are like that's minor stuff. Ubisoft is usually game breaking. You know what I mean? And
they don't have a face. All you see is the eyes and the teeth.
And a lot of Western RPGs have taken a lot of stuff from Japanese RPGs too. You know what I mean? So the open worldness, I can't really say that's one or the other. I think they found a perfect balance between what Final Fantasy used to be and then a game like Witcher. I mean, Witcher is truly open world. You know what I mean? Like you're jumping, you see an ocean of water and you see the island on the other side. You're swimming through that water to get there.
Yeah,
Final Fantasy, they kind of make that invisible wall. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you can't go here. You can't swim in this water.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of invisible walls in this game. That's for sure.
What I kind of want,
to me, that's like a Japanese hallmark. Japanese games always have invisible walls because they want to keep you on track.
Right.
Before I go on this tangent, Chris, what about you? Has this fulfilled your Final Fantasy itch?
I can't say this will top FF12 for me, because 12 to me was the peak. 8 is a close second. So I mean, this game seems like it'll be in my top 5. I would say. I haven't put the controller down. I've pretty much. I refuse to play any other game really other than this game. Pretty much, I'll play a little bit of Blaze Blue, but other than that, this is all I'm playing. So it has my attention. It has me playing a lot, and I haven't done that this generation other than for Witcher 3.
Yeah, Blaze Blue has taken me away from this game, actually.
You make a really good point, Chris. I've been the exact same way, except my Western open world RPG of choice was Dragon Age Inquisition. But yeah, like from the day I bought it, the only time I really stopped playing is when we went to PSX that weekend. And if not, then all I do in my free time is play this game. So it's hard to deny that it's got its hooks in me and it's not fun.
Right. So because we could say all we want, yeah, we wish it would do this, we wish it would do, but it's still keeping our attention. It's still keep like I it's very few games really make me put 40 hours into a game in less than how long has the game been out? 2 weeks?
By the time this podcast's out, yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I put a lot of hours of my life into this game already, so that's a good sign.
And Nick, what about you? I know you haven't played as many Final Fantasies as us, but is it fulfilling your Final Fantasy itch?
I don't have a Final Fantasy itch.
Okay.
And I've lost interest multiple times in this game. So when I do play it a lot. But sometimes I start playing Blaze Blue, and I start playing that for days, and then I get back to Final Fantasy, or I start like I don't know. I lose interest for some reason, but I'm trying to beat the game. That's. I think what happened was I kept doing all the side quests, and I was like, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not getting fulfilled. Like, I want story, so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna start doing all the story quests, and that's what I started doing today. And then I'm like, I'm getting more into it.
You got like, especially before it starts getting really linear. Like, this game is almost like the reverse of 13 in a weird way. But like, when you're still in the open world, you kind of have to find that balance, because if you do side quests too much, like, okay, what's even happening in the story? Like, I'm the same way, because for Final Fantasy, it's always those big story moments that kind of keep me going and wanting to see what happens next. And
the side quest in this game isn't like, say Witcher 3, where every side quest has its story and you're making decisions within those side quests, and you're having different endings to the side quests. It's really eternal fetch quests, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, go over here, point A to point B. But it's that, I don't know, I guess it's that my addiction to get everything done. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to get everything done, get reward, get experience, get
money.
Get
out of it, Chris. Chris, get out of it. You gotta beat the game.
It's eventually. You know what, though? I'm also doing this, too, because when I hear all these updates about them fixing chapters, I'd rather just go through it as slow as I can, and hopefully that update will be out by the time I get to that chapter, so I don't have to do a new game plus. You know what I mean? Because once I beat this game, I want to put it down, because I got like 4 or 5 games coming out in the first 2 months of 2017 that I got to play.
Yeah, seriously.
That's what Kathleen's doing.
January is looking real dangerous. Like, after PSX, there are so many games like, oh, Yakuza looks cool. Oh, Resident Evil. Oh, Tales. Gravity Rush 2. God damn it, there's too many games.
As much as I want Persona 5, I was glad it got delayed.
Oh, me too.
That's what I said.
Me too. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, that was actually probably not a bad thing.
That game.
How are you doing on time, Nick? I feel like we've been going for a while, but
we're at like an hour and 5 minutes.
Nice. Love it.
But yeah, like what I really
don't forget FF12 remastered coming out. I'm gonna be playing. I wish it was on the Vita, but I'm gonna be playing the hell out of that too.
Oh, Zodiac Age, yeah.
Technically, it's on the Vita
because it has that international editions license board system. So now they're like, instead of one universal license board, I think there's like 12 different license boards now where that you can specialize characters.
Yeah,
true customization right there.
But like Nick said, every PS4 game is a Vita game.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. Remote play.
I love it. I do that all the time. It's so good.
I got a Sony Xperia phone, and I got the little controller attached for it, so sometimes it's actually a little more convenient for me to use my phone, because I always have my phone with me. You know what I mean? So, and it's a nice screen.
I'm playing PS4 on my phone.
Oh my gosh. I still have not done remote play once since PS4 came out. And I have a Vita. I just never tried it.
I need to try it with my Pro. I wonder if it actually does stream way better than the original one did. Because that's a feature.
I still think it's really primarily internet-based. So it's really, if your internet hasn't changed, you probably get the same performance.
I don't know. Like, after playing Persona 5, I wanted Final Fantasy 15 to be like that. Like,
playing Persona 5. You played Persona 5 already?
We played it at PSX for a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I got to set some time aside next year. I'm going to go to that event.
It was fun. Yeah, it was cool.
This is the second year we've gone?
This year, like, it was the biggest year for it. Like, it was really good.
Yeah, this year.
So a lot of good games.
Oh, this year we didn't get in. We were right in front. We were right in the front of the line.
Literally, okay. Like, I know we've talked about this on the LHG cast, but literally, the people in front of us were cutting like crazy, and we were the first people to not get into the showcase. We had to like sit outside and watch it on a TV screen. I was so mad. Me and Connor and Nick were just like, "You got to be kidding me!" Like, especially, it wouldn't be as bad if like we just got cut off and that was the end of it. But the people literally right in front of us just kept all morning, just had friends cut and cut and cut. We'll never forget that.
Next time you got to get a little violent. Sometimes things fall for violence, and you gotta hold people back physically.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely tell people what for, and then also maybe get there like an extra hour early or something.
Well,
it
depends on the venue. If it's at Anaheim, definitely. If it's at San Francisco again, I don't think we would have to do that.
Yeah, there was way more room in San Francisco, but anyway. So overall, everybody's liking Final Fantasy 15. It's been fun.
I want to find a way for Final Fantasy to do the, like I was talking about Persona before. I want them to do like a transition that Persona does, you know? Like you see the monster on the world map and then you attack him and then it does like a smooth transition into like a battle area and then you have like a live action battle or turn-based battle or like a hybrid. Mm-hmm. And then when you beat him it transfers into the open world really seamlessly like it does in Persona.
That would be cool.
I don't know. But to me that's going backwards from a seamless in and out of battle that Final Fantasy 15 currently has.
Yeah, that would be.
It's a more traditional approach, but I think
approach.
That it's not necessarily depending on how the combat system is.
Well, yeah, I think it just depends on what you're trying to do with the game overall. Like Final Fantasy 15 clearly is a game about like exploration and walking around. Like it would be really weird to keep transitioning out of battles in an open world game, but I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with the 7 remake because they've shown like bits of gameplay, but I almost wonder if that was even real, at this point. Because it looks,
not.
Yeah, probably not.
No one Square Enix, probably not.
That was all fake, like that first Kingdom Hearts trailer.
If any game can do what you're talking about, Nick, is it would be a Final Fantasy 7 remake if they want to have that balance between, action to fighting an enemy. Did Crisis Core do that, or was Crisis Core random battles? Did you run into the enemies in Crisis Core?
Man, that was a really weird game because there was this weird like slot machine mechanic, and I just I beat the game and I still don't know how it works.
Well, the slot machine mechanic was the limit break.
Yeah, but it was so random. It's like, why would you make your limit break random? Like
that's like the best final battle ever.
I don't even remember how that battle. Oh yeah, where you're like getting killed essentially. They're just getting shot at. Yeah,
it's such a great final battle because he's fighting an endless army of Shinra soldiers.
Yep.
And spoilers.
But yeah,
I'm sure they've seen the anime or they play Final Fantasy 7 again, so they already know.
But isn't that scene like a secret? You had to like go into like a mansion to find that.
What's really funny? It is you have to go to the Shinra mansion like later in the game, and like I remember in like my 5th playthrough of the game because I had beat that game so many times, just coming across it randomly. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, I've never seen this scene before. It's like when Cloud and Zack fall out of these tube chambers and you're on the back of the truck and stuff. Yeah, it's totally hidden. Like, you really have to
And you also run into Zack's parents, too, in that one random area in the game, too, where they talk about their son, blah, blah, blah. They describe Zack. They don't know that he's dead.
Right, yeah, there's what, that game had a lot of secrets. Like, I remember the Lucretia scene with Vincent. Like, first of all, he's a secret character on top of that. And then second of all, like, you have to have him, and then there's, like, this other thing. You have to have, like, the submarine and, like, go to some weird area, like, that you could only get to with the submarine. Like, yeah, that game had tons of secrets.
To me, that point of the game, though, was kind of... I thought that was kind of bad on the developer's part, that you make a character, a secret character that's optional, that has such a big tie with like Hojo, the crazy scientist, and so you'll have these side scenes where he's like, all right, you're getting a lot of story depth, but then when you have him in your party and you're actually going to fight Hojo, he barely talks when he should be talking. You know what I mean? And that's because he's an optional character. They didn't fully flesh out the scene as they could have because, depending who you have in your party, they say different things.
I'll be really curious to see if Yuffie and Vincent are optional characters in the remake, or if they're just because they're so important to the story, you just get them.
Was Yuffie really important though?
Yuffie's not. I would argue Vincent is, but Yuffie, the only interesting
comic relief.
Yeah, she's the comic relief, and then like if you go to her hometown, she steals all your materia.
I actually beat her in the battle, and then she never popped up again.
Oops.
Yep. I didn't know what to do. I was like, "Oh, it's Yuffie. What am I supposed to do?" Oh, well, I killed her. Oops.
If you kill her and then like you have a little dialogue, you're supposed to pretend like you're afraid of her, and then she joins your team. But anyway, getting off track here. Why don't we
That's what we do.
Pull us home, Nick? Reel us on home.
All right. What a conversation about Final Fantasy 15, a game that we all hate but we all love at the same time. But thanks for listening, guys. If you enjoyed what you're listening to, please comment, like, and subscribe. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at LSG Channel, and on Facebook, we're at The Last Honest Gamers. And if you want to ask us a question, be sure to email us at AskGiantSword@gmail.com.
And Chris, thanks for coming on as a guest. Appreciate it, dude.
Thank you for having me.
And well, not really a guest. He's going to become a member now.
Okay. Yeah, no, there was some good conversation. Appreciate you having you on and giving some different opinions, you know?
Yep.
Definitely. Glad to be on, and I hope to join you again on the next many podcasts to come.
Season 2, because this is actually going to be our last podcast of the year. And we'll be back on January with new updated stuff with a lot more guests.
Mm-hmm. Nick has been showing me what he's been working on, and we definitely have some cool guests lined up in the future. So be excited.
For anyone watching to the end of this podcast, the verdict is buy Final Fantasy 15 if you're a Final Fantasy fan. And if you're a JRPG fan, buy Final Fantasy 15.
Oh yeah, no brainer. Absolutely.
No, I'm just joking. All right, see you guys.